Guys, welcome back to another episode here on Feather Nest Studios, where art and magic combine to create beautiful, beautiful miniatures. So welcome back to another episode, and today we are going to be building what I like to call the mystery room inside of the Spellman Mortuary dollhouse. So if you've been following along, then you know that I am recreating the Spellman Mortuary from the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. And I cannot believe how much I've built in 5 months. It's crazy. And it's so weird because I feel like miniatures don't even feel like work, you know? However, I learned a big lesson with this room. I really pushed myself to finish it in a certain time frame, and I could feel internally as if I was starting to get a little burnt out, and I decided to push through that. And that actually resulted in me not wanting to touch anything for a few weeks. And so I just want to share that with you guys. If you are working on a project and you have sometimes unrealistic goals of when you want things finished and you really push yourself to the point you're not having fun anymore, definitely stop, because burnout is so real and it can make you not want to do the thing that you love. But thankfully that time is over. Yay! So the main reason why I'm calling this room the mystery room is because on the show, a lot of TV shows will do this where they'll have one set and then they'll just rotate the furniture or the theme of that room. And in the show, this is the room that they do that with. So at certain parts of the show, it's a memorial service room where people go to view the wakes of, their family members. And other times it's the sitting room or the guest room, and that's where we'll see a lot of conversations with guests that are showing up to the house. This is also where they hold the Yule room, so all the solstice decorations and the Yule tree or Christmas tree. So I think for the future, when it comes to the actual furniture of this room, I probably will do the similar things where I have different furniture that I can rotate out and make it kind of like one of those things where if I'm going to showcase this anywhere, I can change out this room to make it different every time. So I love it. This room was really exciting for me because it has so many different aspects. It has a mural wall, it has inside windows that I really, really wanted to capture, because technically in the show, these windows go with the office, and the office is on the first floor. But like most shows, the house does not always match the actual floor plan of the show. And so I had to do something different. But I really wanted to have these windows on the bottom floor, just like it is in the TV show. And so I decided to put them in this room. And I feel like it works with it. Then we also have a fireplace. So it's a lot of various elements that resulted in the making of this room. And that's always really exciting because it gives me multiple kind of things to do and to look at and work on, other than just wallpaper and trimmings. So without further ado, I'm going to show you guys how I built this room and take you on the adventure with me. So let's get crafting. So before even beginning, I'm going to be looking at my model house. And if you want to see how I created this, just check out the top right corner. But basically, having a model house allows me to work out any kinks in my project and really plan for what I was going to build in a bigger scale. So I highly recommend trying that if you've never built a project, to do a tiny one, a tiny house first. And so now what you're seeing me craft is I'm basically taking foam board and I'm creating the top of a doorway for my living room space. And the reason I'm including this in this video is just because I put it off, and then I realized since I'm using the same wallpaper, I might as well do it now. But it's a really simple process of just putting the foam pieces together and then applying the wallpaper like I normally do. And of course, in all my past videos, I go over all these processes in detail, but since I've made so many videos going over it, I'm only going to be skimming over it in this one. But basically I use a glue and water mixture to create a flat, I guess a flat base for the wallpaper. So instead of glue, which will create lumps, this just makes it easier to work with. And then when I had ripped up the wallpaper on the darker side, I realized that you could see the white rips. So all I did was just take a marker and fill those in. And once I put Modpodge on it, you really could not tell the difference. And now it was time for me to begin actually building the room. And you might have seen these little pieces from a previous video that I did, but they're basically just little glass pieces that I found at a thrift store. And I got an entire bucket of them for, I think, like $5. So I really highly suggest you always checking out thrift stores for miniatures because you never know what you may find. But in order to glue those, I just use E6000 glue, which is really great to glue plastic or glass, where other glues don't always bond as well too. So if you have any issues gluing them, that could be a huge help. But now in order to get the curved room or the curved walls, I'm basically making 3 panels exactly like this, where I just cut out the center, I traced out my little glass piece and then tested it over and over again to make sure it worked. And all my walls in my dollhouse are double thick, so I use 2 pieces of foam board for each wall. So all I'm doing here is just tracing out an exact replica of the one I just made so that they can be glued together. And I do this process 3 different times for the 3 different walls that I have for this curvature. And I decided before putting wallpaper onto this piece to go ahead and just paint the sides, since you are going to see the sides through the glass, and then also if there is any white showing, it really deters from the eye. So highly suggest doing this before you put on wallpaper, but if you're careful, it doesn't really matter. And then I go ahead and test out my other 2 glass pieces to go in the other 2 slots. And once I know that all those fit, I'm going ahead and making the trimming for it. And you've probably definitely seen this in other videos, but all I use for trimming is just cereal box material, chipboard, and I like to use recycled materials as much as I can in my projects because not only is it super cost efficient, but it's just overall better for the environment. And I think as a species, the more we do this, instead of it being something that's, out of your way to do, but just as a common practice, is finding different ways to use our perceived trash that isn't trash so that we can help make sure we have a planet for many, many years to come. But now that my TED Talk is over, get back to crafting. But I'm basically just taking little pieces and I'm gluing them on top of a bigger piece. And this just creates depth. The really cool thing about trimmings is you can do all different types of designs. But for this project, I've decided to just stay consistent with it. And all my trimmings basically look the same on the bottom level. And that way I think it just ties the project together. But when I get into the other rooms, I might do something more crafty or different. But my main pattern is just having a square in the center and then putting 2 poles on either side of it. So it makes it look like wood planks on top of the trimmings. And so once everything finishes drying, then that's when I go ahead and paint it a solid dark color. And I'll show you later on in the video how I do my painting more in depth. We will be painting several things in this video. So I kind of skim over this one because you've seen it so many times. But then I also make sure to go ahead and paint a wooden dowel. And the dowels you will see I'm using as the in-between that allows me to curve the walls. And I'll show you that more in depth in just a little bit. But once I have my trimmings done, I go ahead and glue them on. And now it's time to start painting the other sides of these. So I decided not to do wallpaper on this side just because in the show, it's just a yellow room. So I always make sure to put Modpodge on before I paint it, and that just helps keep the foam from warping. And now you can see as I glued on the wooden dowels, something I want to point out is that I glued them closer to the front of the piece, if you can see. And so basically when I pair them next to each other, I can glue one at an angle. And I'm hoping that makes sense, but I think it'll make more sense a little bit later when I show you when I put them in. But then for the window trimmings, I'm just using some coffee stirrers, which make excellent craft tools. And I'm just cutting them at an angle so that they all fit into a rectangular shape before painting them brown and gluing them on. So now that it's dried, it's time to finally glue them in. I can't really get the measurements for the other walls until I have these pieces glued in. So I went ahead and decided to install them. And as you can see, I have the walls at an angle, and that's why I have that dowel piece towards the front of the wall, because that allows me to put something up against it at an angle. Hopefully that's making sense. So let me know in the comments if you don't understand what I mean by this, and I can explain it a little bit further. But I just left those there, let them dry. And once they were dry enough, that's when I used paper to measure out the hallway floorboards. And as you can see, I've done all the other floors. I'm going to be doing this exactly the same. So once I have the measurements, I cut it out of mat board and I go ahead and start lining it so I can make the pattern of the floorboards. And I do this both horizontal, and then I also do the vertical lines, which are every other line, so that it looks like wooden planks have been stacked in a pattern together. And then once I have what I'm looking for, I go ahead and take my X-Acto knife and I cut along the line on either side of it. And then I pull up that top layer of mat board, and that just gives me depth and texture. So it doesn't look just painted. It also looks like it's really a wooden plank. And then I come in with lighter highlights. I start with light brown and then I move to white, which gives it a very ashy look. And I really like that. And then to just deepen out the crevices, I go ahead and take black and I just put black in all the lines, and that really pops out those wooden planks. And then I cover the entire thing in Mod Podge and glue it into my project. And now it's time to focus on the other walls, and I went ahead and cut them out. And if you want to see again my process on building walls, check out the link in the top right corner, and I will show you my process of figuring out how to know what to measure out. But these walls I'm really excited about because they're just very different than the other ones. But like all the other ones, whenever you're working with foam board, the middle is really hard to paint over and it looks very obvious. So I always like to cover that up with a little bit of paper. So anytime I'm cutting out a doorway or a window, it's good to have some way to cover up that middle foam piece. So now I can finally begin the process I have been waiting for, which is creating the mural work inside of the mystery room. And so on the show, they have this image of an apple tree. And of course, if you've seen the show, then you know it represents the Garden of Eden. And because they're technically Satanists in the beginning, they see everything kind of the opposite as Christianity would. But it's still a really fascinating show because they change their religions throughout the show and really discover their own power. And I think it's just such a fascinating concept. And I think that's one of the reasons I love it so much, because in my personal professional life, I do spiritual coaching. So I find it just really fascinating learning about how people view the world and how they use religion and traditions to make decisions. But this is my take on the apple tree, and I had so much fun creating this. So something I'm using a lot of is wooden dowels in my project. Because my project's made of foam, I do want to make sure that it does have some very structural parts to it. So I put wooden dowels in between every wall that I possibly can, just to give the higher levels more stability when I do build those. So this is what they look like when I finish, basically, I guess, painting them and putting them on. And at this point, they're ready to go besides the trimming. And trimming is definitely not my favorite part because it just seems like it goes on forever, but it always looks so good once you put it on. So, but I feel like that's all my content really is just me painting trimming. So here's more of me painting trimmings. And now I want to show you guys just a quick update on how the project's looking as a whole. As you can see, I installed that little piece into this wall to the left. And there's the furniture that we made last week. And then the door that we made the week before that. And there's the hallway floor. And here's the start of my walls. So far we have a large chunk of this completed. And I'm really loving the way it's looking. And now to start building the final wall to this room, which is going to have the fireplace on it. So in order to get the fireplace, I'm going to do exactly what I did to create the stove in the kitchen and also the fireplace in the other room that has the fireplace. Fireplace. How many times can I say that in this video? I guess we're going to find out. So basically I stack some foam squares and I just kind of play this one by ear on how large I want it. I know I did not want this one to be too large because it is already such a small room. And since I already have a larger fireplace, I figured this one would just be a little fireplace. And so I just cut out the centerpiece that I feel is a good fit for this one. And I do that in all of the blocks. And now for the base of the fireplace, I'm going ahead and cutting out the external piece, which is going to be made of mat board. And I used mat board to create the bricks in the living room fireplace as well. So it's going to be the same process, but a different pattern this time. And basically what I'm doing is I'm just scoring the sides of this piece so that it can fully wrap around the base, because the foam is only the skeleton and the mat board is basically the skin on it, which is kind of morbid, but I mean, I guess for a mortuary, it makes sense if I'm using this type of metaphor. So now I'm doing the exact same thing for the actual fireplace, where I'm just cutting out basically the same shape as the foam piece. Only with this one, I'm not going to be cutting fully away from the center because I want some of the mat board to go inside of the foam. So it looks as if the stones are going inside of the fireplace as well. And so to do this, I just leave on a little slither on either side of the opening, and I score it so that I'm able to bend it inside. So for this part of the project, I'm going to be creating a pattern that's going to end up looking like glass tiles in cement. And so I'm just using a little wooden dowel to help measure it out. I definitely did not get these lines perfect, but it's because it's such a small part of the project, I wasn't too worried about it. But you can always measure them out if you want to make sure that they're completely even. I originally wanted the inside to be white, like a white color, but I ended up just noticing how uneven it looked, and so I actually decided to darken it, which you will see. But basically, because I wanted it originally to be white on the inside, I decided to go ahead and color it before removing the top layer of paper. Because, you know, the top layer of paper helps create texture, but you can also have that part be lighter if you want to use that as a means to create the color beyond just texture. So first I colored all of it with marker, which marker is something I'm just now really exploring when it comes to miniatures, but it definitely gave me ideas for things to do in the future. But I do the same thing as I did with the floor, where I'm just cutting out the first layer of the paper by making a line on either side. And as you can see, it reveals the white underneath. But when I did finish it, I was not very happy with it, so I started playing around with the marker on the sides just to see what it would look like. And I was really happy with how that looked, so I figured it looked kind of like gray cement. And my video does not record as good as it looks in person. So I'm going to try and show you guys with the gloss how it looks, but you just have to trust me that I like it. But yeah, I just used another marker to color in the inside of it so you would no longer see the white. And then to get some tiles to stick out a little bit more than others, I went back over it with another marker. And as you can see, I just darkened certain squares, and I felt like that gave it more of a variation where it looks really like it is stone tiles that make up this fireplace mantle. And then I painted the inside of the mantle black just so you wouldn't be able to see anything. And I also painted the back of the wall black as well, so that when it's glued you won't be able to tell. But you can see as I added the glossy Mod Podge onto the fireplace, it really pops out those colors. So I really love how it turned out, because for a while there I was getting a little worried. And then there's the back. This is the full wall that I'm going to be adding it to. And here it is with all the walls fully installed, and now I'm ready to begin working on the carpet. But I'm really loving the way it's looking so far. And now I'm taking the same method that I use for all my flooring, which is just putting paper down so that you can have an exact floor plan, because even measuring, it's really hard to get the exact angles of your floor. So I cut that out of mat board, and now I'm taking this little piece of felt that I got from Hobby Lobby, which only cost me 75 cents, and that's going to be my carpet. And the reason I'm doing this on mat board and not just down on the actual floor of the dollhouse is because it is very see-through. So you definitely want to use Fabrifix or something that's going to dry clear. And if you have any variation on your floor, you'll need to put it on mat board first so that you won't see anything through the carpet. And so now that everything's installed, here is what we created today. Okay, you guys, that is all I have for you today. I am really happy with how the room turned out. I really love that I have carpet now in my little house, so it's not all flooring. It's so funny because I actually think I need to get a little vacuum for it because there's always little things on the floor. I do want to say I'm not fully done with this room. Obviously, none of the rooms are fully done. I still want to put on baseboards. I think I might want to fix the window not being even, and I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but I do have a window that is a little bit higher than the other window. And at first I was like, it's fine, no one's gonna notice but me. But now when I look in the room, that's all I can see. So I wonder if any of you guys are like that as miniaturists, if you're like super perfectionist and you need things to be perfect, or you just stare at it. So I might add some curtains above it to kind of hide the fact that it's not even. So let me know what you think about that. If you think that curtains right here will be too much, or if you think that would be perfect to hide the inconsistency of the windows. Let me know in the comments below. And so next week, I'm really excited because I'm going to be showing you guys how I made these little curtains and installed the windows. So if you are someone who has never put windows into your project, me too. This was my first experience with putting in windows, and I feel like I learned quite a bit in the process. So I'm really excited to make a video on that. And yeah, if you guys have any things that you want me to cover, I'm really excited to hear about them. Please let me know. And I'm ready to start building furniture. We're almost there. Curtains are kind of the start of that. But now that we are done building the actual rooms of the first level, we can get into more fun projects. So we have a lot coming, so make sure to subscribe if you want to follow along. But until next time, happy crafting!